Hey guys, this is Dinosaur, and this is the second part on how to draw details on your dinosaurs. So yeah, I'm gonna adjust this muscle a little bit. I don't think that it's a little bit too straight in my opinion, so I want to draw it a little bit more with a curve like this. Just a tiny little bit more. Alright, so now we want to focus on doing. Well, let's first just finish this off a little bit. So there's going to be a little bit of shadow over here. A little bit, and you can draw a couple of lines like this to fill up the white space. So it still looks like there's a little bit of a shadow going on. Alright. So now we can focus on doing some detail on this muscle. So there's gonna be pretty pretty a lot of shadow, sorry. A lot of shadow over here. Yeah, sometimes I can't find the words in English because I am from Holland, so we don't speak English. Well, a lot of Dutch people do speak English, but not like a main language. So there's gonna be a lot of shadow happening over here. But also, we want to have that little highlight over there as well. So we can just continue on trying to fade this shadow into the wider area. And his knee is pretty much rounded, so it will have a lot of shadow on it, like that. And there won't be too much of a shadow over here, but just a little bit, and not too dark either. But we do want to have one line kind of going like this, because there's a little bit of an indentation on that muscle, but in my opinion the leg itself is a little bit too wide, so what I usually do is draw a couple more very thin lines that make it look like there's a little bit of a tone in there. So for this muscle it will be very dark at this area because this part of his leg is kind of covering the light over here. That's also what you're seeing right now. And then there would be a lot of shadow over here because of the way this muscle works. And then just kind of draw a couple of lines going more into the wider area. And we have a little more shadow over there than at the other areas, as well as over here. Because the sun is not completely capable of shining light on it over there. And then because this is more like a rounded object, almost half of the object would be colored in. And we have a lot of shadow kind of over here as well. and a little bit of shadow over there for the area where the muscle goes all the way into his toes. Well, it's not like a muscle, it's more like that part that is attached to the muscle. Don't know what the right word for is. I believe it's a tendon. So just draw those. Sorry for that sound. Those claws in. Then we have a little bit of shadow underneath his foot, and then we can go on to the little scales on top of his toes. Don't draw them any darker than the shadows, because otherwise it will just look strange and doesn't fit in the picture. So now we can move on to his tail, and his tail also has a lot of a very big area where there is a cast shadow over top of it. For example, this whole area would be darkened, but it kind of fades a little bit more into the light, and it kind of loses its shadow over the length of its tail, because the tail is getting thinner and thinner. So there's not gonna be a lot of shadow on there. I mean, for example, if you have a very big object like this, if you have a very big object, then the shadow over here would be darker than when you have a smaller object like this. Well, normally that would be the case, but I guess because the light source, my light source, and this object is kind of shiny, so it reflects light a little bit better, so it's a little bit lighter than the normal objects. But normally that's the case. Because it blocks the sunlight better. So basically the whole underside of his tail would be very, very dark. And later on we can still add some details in it as well. But at least we have those shadows down there already. But we do have to be careful not to mess up too much of the shadowed areas. So that's basically done, and now we also have a bit of a cast shadow on this muscle. On this tail muscle over here. Alright, so this cast shadow goes kind of like over here. And then also into the rest of his tail. Make sure not to go over that highlight over here. Alright, so like I said, it's getting lighter and lighter once you get closer to the tip of his tail. And then over here we just have a little bit of shadow, which is not too dark. Just a little bit of shadow, because it's kind of dented inwards because of the muscle coming out of it. And now you can just draw in those lines to make it fade a little bit more into the wider area. And it's probably best to take your time on this area, because it's such a long area and you need to make every line look like it's copied from the past one. And it's getting lighter and lighter, so make sure you go lighter with your lines as well. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm off the page. I'm off the camera, sorry. Alright. Something like this. Okay. So that would be about done with all the muscles. Now we still have to do a little bit of muscles on his jaws and on his face, basically. Like over here there's gonna be one big muscle, I think, and over here would be a muscle attached. So we are going into that in a second. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I had to do something real quick. So yeah, so now we want to have this like eye ridge over here, which will have a lot of shadow. And we're gonna draw it like this. And let's see, there's also gonna be a lot of shadow around his eye. And the shadow over here will be a little bit more than at the end of this line. And it's also going to be a little bit darker at the top. Alright, and then for this one there's going to be a muscle, I think, attached, so it's going to look something like this. Maybe even a little bit whiter, sorry, a little bit more light for that muscle, something like that. And there would also be a little bit shadow over there. And then over here as well, you want to have that cast shadow again. And then it kind of fades into the wider area. And now we can draw those scales again. And now I'm just drawing some lines because I feel like I'm messing up the highlight, which I don't want to do. And I'm using the wrong eraser again. I keep forgetting that this one is basically ruined because graphite sticks to the end of it, and then I kind of draw lines with an eraser, which is not what it's intended for. Alright, so now we can also draw a couple of lines coming from his jaw like this. Maybe make them go back a little. And this is the part where you can add as much detail as you would like to add, as long as the highlights don't get ruined too much. You scale over there, and I'm not sure if you can clearly see it, so I'm gonna try and zoom in a little on his head. So it's better for you guys to see what's happening. Just drawing a couple of lines there, making his jawline a little bit better visible and everything, and come up with a couple of tears in his skin. You can basically go over the shadow areas as well. And also what you could do is draw in a couple of darker looking scales as well, but you don't draw them as scales at this scale. You draw them like circles, but if you draw them right and you put them right next to each other like freckles, they will give the viewer, the one that's actually looking at your drawing, it will make it look like there are scales on the dinosaur. And you can just randomly place them. You don't really have to pay too much attention to the way that you place them. It will look kind of cool eventually. So now we want to have a shadow, a muscle over here, a very big one, because the T-Rex had very powerful jaw muscles. So we're gonna draw the cast shadow on it, and then we're gonna draw a couple of lines that fade into the wider area of the drawing, and kind of do the same on the lower part of his lower jaw. A little bit of a cast shadow at some areas, and that would be fine. So now we have a much better looking dinosaur, and like I said, we can still add detail at this point. So I'm just gonna draw a couple of wrinkles, like what I did over here. As long as you don't mess with the shadows and the highlights, it will all be fine. So at the shadow areas, the detail will have to be a little bit darker, but at the areas where there is like more sunlight, you will have to make it a little bit less dark, a little lighter. And pay attention when you're drawing these lines in, that the body of the T-Rex is actually round. So the muscles are actually rounded, so you can't just draw straight lines down. You have to draw it in a particular way. And make those lines kind of go like this. Maybe a couple of wrinkly lines over here for his arm. And probably a lot of them over here as well. And these you can kind of make them go with the flow of the neck wrinkles. So yeah, as you can see, it's starting to look like an actual pretty detailed drawing right now. And we can go on and add more details as we go. We do want to have a little bit of shadow at the tip of his snout. And also a little bit over here as well. Oh, I'm sorry, you couldn't see that. So I drew a little bit of shadow at the snout and a little bit over here as well. So I want to kind of skip the leg area, and I want to continue on those rimples at his tail area. And you can just kind of go randomly. You don't have to pay too much attention to the way that you place it. Maybe those rimples will go a little bit more up into his leg area over there, and we might want to have a little bit over here as well. And make it go like a little bit more up his leg area. Yeah. And now you can keep on going with those. So I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna do it a little bit faster. But you should take your time doing this. It's probably the best if you just take as much time as you need to draw something. And I'm also trying to keep everything in the shot. I want to keep everything on camera. So now you can just place them randomly. You don't have to pay too much attention to it anymore. And I think I'm gonna use this as my thumbnail, because I'm pretty sure that if I put both of them on the thumbnail, most of the people probably won't click on the video. So okay, and we can also add a little bit of scales over there, just a tiny bit of extra detail, not too much going on. And as well, don't go overboard, don't go too dark or use too much detail on areas where it's supposed to be very light, because that way you will kind of create a more dark shadow at a place where it's supposed to be light, where there is supposed to be highlights and stuff, so we don't want to do that. So this way you can still at this scale draw incredible small details and make it look incredibly good as well. So I'm making a little bit of shadow for underneath the teeth, so you can kind of see the teeth a little better. Alright, so let's zoom out now and compare the two with each other. So yeah, if you follow the tutorial the right way, your dinosaur would be looking more like this, and instead of this actually. So if you want to go from this to this, yeah, you should have watched the tutorial till the end. I mean, I hope a lot of you guys are still watching this, and I believe that if you do it right, you will definitely improve big time. So if you liked the video, leave a like, comment below what you think about the video and the drawings in general, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss a single video. So this was Dinosaur Drawer, and goodbye.